Okay, YouTubers, we're back. So now we have our pieces sanded. I went ahead and cleaned up the table and took all of the sanding garbage off. So the next thing we're going to do is take our tokenol, and we could also use what they call, this is probably one of the better things to put on this particular type of leather that I'm getting ready to use to get a good edge. It's not going to edge perfectly, but it's going to edge good. They also make a chemical called gum tragacanth. And we'll teach you about that when we teach our or go through the school of how to take a leather business from square zero and make it a business. So basically you just take your tokenol. We're gonna go right over these edges and just spread it on here. You can spread it with your finger, you can spread it with a Q-tip if you don't want to get it on your fingers, but this stuff is pretty good, non-toxic, it won't hurt you that I'm aware of. But if you're worried about that, then I would always suggest that you wear gloves as a precaution. So don't ever take my word. Always look that up. Go to the professional, get your MSDS sheets, look it up, see what it says, and do what it says. So once you put the tokenol on there, or your gum tragacanth or whatever you want to put on there, or you can just put water as well. You take your wood burnisher, slicker, wood slicker is what they call it, and we're going to rub it across the surface of the edge of the leather. And what we're doing here is we're heating this up. We're heating up the fibers of the leather. It's laying them down as they heat up, and it's forming them into like one solid edge. And if you have multiple edges of leather coming together, it'll make it look like one. In this case, it's just a single pane of leather. So it's just closing that edge up so that we don't have to worry about dust, dirt, water penetrating that too much, getting in there and causing our leather to have issues. Okay? So after you put that on, you want to rub it on with this wood slicker. When the wood slicker heats the leather up, it'll heat it up and you will hear it ticking. And when it starts to tick, you'll know that you're getting those fibers laid down really well, and you can probably hear it. And that's what you want to hear, right? And then so there's your edge. Looks pretty good. Yeah? Okay. So we're going to do each one of these edges. And if you don't want to watch each one of these being done because it's identical, you can fast forward the video because I'm going to do each one of these interiors, and then I'm going to do the other interior part of the leather wallet. And do all the edges, and then we're going to do the exterior of one side of the exterior. To prepare it for when we sandwich it together. So for some of you this may be boring, others may find it relaxing to watch. Kind of like leather ASMR. So you can see that leather edge comes together just fine. And you can see how the leather edge is. See if we can see that real good. You can see how that edge is before. You can see it kind of sticking up. It looks hairy. You can see the fibers sticking up. And then as we put the toconol on there, rub it in real good with our fingers. And it will get, as you start rubbing this in, it'll start getting tacky as it dries. As it gets tacky, then it will start heating up as you burnish back and forth. Oh yeah, the other good thing is to have a nice t-shirt that you can just rip apart, you know, an old t-shirt. It's good to wipe your hands on, and it's good to wipe the leather off with sometimes, okay? So again, we'll slick the leather up here with the wood slicker. And you want to get, they have different grooves in this wood slicker. This is obviously for big. The next is medium, smaller, smallest. So you just kind of put it in there wherever it fits good, and you can kind of look down through there, if you will, and you can see where that fits. If you put it in that one or this one, you know you got a lot more room. If you put it in this one, as you slick that back and forth, you can see that it gives you a little tighter tolerance. And so it's going to hold and rub on the sides a little better as you pull this back and forth. And so holding a chrome tan leather like I'm using is very difficult to hold. I've been doing it so long that I have developed a technique for holding this. So the first couple times, if you go to hold it and it just kind of crushes in on you and folds in and acts all crazy, don't get frustrated. You'll eventually get the hold on it. And you can see now when it's finished, see how smooth that is. And also with the smoothness, it gets shiny, okay? So that's what we're doing when we're slicking our edges or treating our edges, preparing our edges. So we're getting these edges done because these are the edges that we can't do once our product is built, okay? So we're doing all the edges that we can't do once our product is built, okay? because these are going to be laying down on the inside like this, and we're not going to be able to get in there without scraping across this and boogering something up or scraping, because anytime you rub against leather with a wood slicker, with your hand, with your blue jeans, whatever it is, you're going to do what they call burnish your leather, and it's gonna mark it. And a burnish mark on a leather is not reversible. You can't take it out. It basically has to wear out. But that's what makes leather unique, is you put it in your pocket and you wear it. You will wear down specific sides and positions, areas of your wallet as it rubs against your jeans or in your front pocket of your pants or what have you. And that's what they call patina. And the patina of your wallet will make it yours. And that's what is cool about having handmade leather items, because you get it to patina it and make it yours. And it's kind of special. It's kind of like just like your blue jeans. When you get your blue jeans, if you get them and they're not all pre-faded and worn, I call it fake worn, because what they do is they basically put it in a big type washing machine and tumble it with heavy components like rocks or something like that, of that sort of nature, something hard, and or they have a machine that scrubs up against the jeans, and burnishes it, and then makes the jeans look worn, just like that does on your jeans. It's how your wallet looks when it gets done. So some people that's why they like to buy jeans that look pre-worn, because they can get something that would take a year or two to get that patina look on them. They can have it instantly done and they don't have to wait. And that's why you're finding a lot of jeans now that's got rips and holes and everything else in them, which is kind of crazy. Anyhow, here's that piece done. 13 minutes on our time frame. Now on this is going to go on top of one part, so we only need to do one edge. Whichever edge we pick as the top, I'm going to pick this as the top, so I'm only going to need to do this particular edge with my token awl, okay? And these other edges will do once we get these sewn together, which will be the next thing to be done. And I'll show you this as we move forward. So you constantly got to be thinking about what you're doing, what you are going to be doing with your particular project. What's my next steps? What are my steps? And then that will tell you what you need to be doing. And in the beginning, you'll need to follow a guide. And just like my build-alongs, you'll see that I am addressing the steps for you Now eventually, you'll need to either write down your steps or memorize them, and eventually, after you do a few, you'll get the steps memorized, and then everything will come natural to you, and you won't have to wonder, oh, what was my step? Did I miss a step? You know, and if I want to do a modification, where should I do it? What's going to be the best place to do it? That it doesn't mess things up, and that just takes experience and time. But for now, since I'm teaching you and making these videos for you, you can simply follow what I'm telling you to do. And I don't think I'll get much of this out of line here, because I've done so many of these wallets over time that I know how to do them like the back of my hand. And they're still fun. So on this piece, so the next thing we need to do is to take our interior piece and put our middle piece and our two edge pieces on. But before we do that, because I don't leave this as a complete pass through or stitch it down and make it nothing, I like to make this a pocket. So what I'll do next is I will take my square, put it in my square, square this up so everything's nice and square, right? I'm going to take my awl, and you're going to lift this up, and you're going to give your leather underneath a scratch just below this top right here. So you'll know about right there is where I'm going to need to start my glue, or I stitch line and glue, okay? In this case, it's going to be glue line. So we're going to make this mark. We're going to be gluing this side, this side, this side prior to putting it on our wallet. All right. Prior to going over to the wallet, we will stitch this side down, and then we will re-burnish it. That way, this piece, this side, will get stitched, and it'll look like it's stitched, but it's not going to be stitched down, which therefore it's going to create a pocket. It's going to be pretty cool. And so this is how you make a pocket in leather. And so you take your wing divider, and you'll want to set these to take your ruler, and everything in leather is done in millimeters. So if you take your leather ruler, you can see there I'm at 4 millimeters, right? 4 millimeters. And so once I put it at 4 millimeters, I tighten this down, which is set and it's locked. And now that's going to be my stitch spacing from the edge of my leather edge. And that'll keep all of my leather stitching done in an exact width. So it'll all look nice and uniform. But in this case, I'm doing this on the bottom because I'll be putting this on and redrawing this to do the stitching. But I'm drawing this on the bottom here so that I know where to put my glue, how far over to put my glue. Because I want my glue to stick. I want this to stick to this top pocket to stick to this bottom pocket. But I only want it to stick on the outside edges. And I only want it to stick right there about where so when I come down with this, like so, right? My stitch is going to be right there on that line, which on this piece will be right there on that line. And so if I have my glue between this line and the exterior, then it'll be glued on this side perfectly, right down through here. And so I won't have a bunch of glue. I'll have a good guide, and it'll leave me plenty of room in my pocket without having to fiddle around with glue every time I'm sticking cards or whatever I stick in there. Yeah? So, nice little detail. So what we do on this is we just take our scratch awl, or we could also, I have another tool, which I didn't introduce to you yet. It's a scratcher. So you can, first of all, you can take your awl, if that's all you have, which is what I had for years, and you can just scratch, rough up your edge. That's where you're going to put your glue at. And the reason you're scratching, that's so that your glue will have something to hold on to. Because if you have a slick surface and you put your glue on there, your glue won't stick as good. You can also take this rougher, and you can also rough up your leather. And you'll notice that it is about as wide as that stitch line that we just put up there. And so it also roughs up your leather. So that you can glue it. Right? And you try to stay in the line and not get glue all in through here. That way, you know, your pocket's not all sticking together. You want to try to be pretty spot on with that. And then you can just take your brush, in this case, it's 100% horsehair brush by Kiwi. It's an old one. I got this back in the military. And you can just give your leather brush to brush off any leather scrap pieces that may have came up due to the scratching. Because those will just take your adhesive and it'll fall off. And it won't stick to your leather. So you want to get that off your leather. Then you just want to very gently go where you marked your line. Right? And come down with your glue. And I always buy the cement. I call it glue, but it's contact cement. And I'll show you why you want to use contact cement. It adheres on contact. And if you get the the one that has, I like to get the small container the first time. It'll have a brush in it. And then you can buy a bigger can that you can refill this can, and then you can just continue to reuse this brush. And the brush makes it nice to apply the adhesive, the contact cement. And so now, since I did the outside, I'm going to do the inside of this piece that we did. And we're going to do about, again, about 4 millimeters in. Spread that adhesive on there. And then what you want to do is we're going to let this adhesive dry. And that's the other thing too. When I first started, is like, well, how long do you let it dry? Is it 5 minutes? Is it 10 minutes? Is it 2 minutes? Is it whatever, you know? And the best thing is to, let it dry, 5-10 minutes, and then check it. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that it's tacky. See, this is too tacky because it's sticking to my finger. So that's a little too tacky. The way contact cement works is that you put it on one piece and you apply it to the second piece. And then when you let both pieces dry, where they're just become non-tacky, but still a little bit tacky. Okay, so they're not super tacky. Let's put it that way. Once you put them together, they will adhere on contact. And that's what you want to do. And so a lot of times you can do 2 pieces, right? You can get, since we got these prepared, we got the adhesive. Instead of just sitting here waiting on them to dry, we can move them aside, and we can go ahead and now mark our other pieces that we're going to do on either side while we're waiting on those to dry. And so what we'll want to do is obviously line this outside piece. This is called a pocket, this outside pocket. I'm going to line it up here, right around here, as best you can. And let's see if you can see that pretty good. Yeah, you can see that. So you can see we've got that lined up nice and smooth. You could use your square and make sure your square's on there. But the other thing is to make sure that you have this piece butted up against there, so you know that this, when this fits flush here and on the sides, that this piece is going to set right there. And the reason we want to do that is because we're going to hold this piece with our middle finger. We're going to remove this piece, right? And we're going to mark it. We're going to mark this piece, bottom, bottom, and bottom. We're going to move this down just a couple millimeters. And we're going to mark it again. And what this is doing for us is this is going to give us a place to scratch our surfaces, because we're going to be putting adhesive on either side of these ears, right? And across the bottom here. We're going to do that for each side while we're waiting on this to dry. So we're not just, doing nothing while we're waiting on this to dry. While we're waiting on that to dry, we're doing this. And then once that's dry, we put those together and finish that part, and then return back to wherever we left off here to continue on. So that's why I show you how to do it this way, because it maximizes your labor time, and that you're not just sitting around waiting on glue to dry or adhesive or contact cement, and you can kind of move on. The thing is, you just got to be cognizant of where you're at and know what your next steps are. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to do this piece and this piece. Once I show you this piece and this piece, then I'm going to cut the video off, because I'm going to start, because we're already at 30 minutes. I'm trying to keep these down to short videos. So once we make this marked up here, we'll give it a little brush. Brush off that excess. And then again, same thing, take our contact cement, brush out some of the excess here. You don't need all that. You don't need a lot of cement. You just need a little bit. You just need just like that much, okay? So it's not like you don't want to put a whole glob on there and where it's going to ooze out. That's not good. You just want to barely put some on like that, okay? Just like that. And then I always like to start with the end here and go over the edge, and then just turn this sideways and go over the edge here. The key is don't go over this top line. If you go over that bottom line, it's okay, because you're going to be putting another piece over there. But if you go above this top line, it's going to show, because that's going to be your finished product. So stay behind that line, which we did drop it down 2 millimeters. So if you do make a mistake, you've got 2 millimeter buffer, but that's it. Once you go beyond 2 millimeter, then you're going to have to wipe it off, and you may or may not see it. And if you see it on your project, it could ruin your project a little bit, or it just won't look as good, because you will see the glue and it will darken your leather, okay? So I'm giving you all the helpful tips that it takes years to learn. And so now I'm going to set this aside. While I'm setting that aside, this side should be done. And you can see here, as I dab my finger on there, it's a little tacky, but it's not, it's not too tacky. It's just a little tacky. And so what you'll want to do is get your square, put your square in there, put your edge in there, get your edge down. Now, I always like to take a look, and you can see that it didn't go all the way down. So the good thing is we can kind of peel that apart. And I did that to show you, if you make a mistake, as long as you take it off right away, you can fix it, okay? So you can use these I usually use these to cut and to line everything up, but when it comes to gluing, because sometimes when you try to get this back here, this glue wants to get in here and stick, like you just saw, and then you have a big gap. I like to take and put my forefinger and my thumb on each of the side and the bottom, and then use it and put this on the side and the bottom, okay? And kind of use that as my guide to put this leather down on. So now that I've felt with my fingers that this is the edge and that's the edge, you can see that it's pretty much spot on the edge. And then you'll want to just ever so gently and slowly just kind of let that fall in place and pinch it. Okay, and now we've got our edge pretty well done. And then you can go down to your bottom, make sure your bottom's lined up, yeah, like that, okay. And then, therefore, then your next edge should fit right in there. And so now our edge is perfect, or as perfect as possible, with very little overhang on either side, as you can see. Very little over on this side and very little over on that side. And so now this is going to fit very well. And then so they always teach you to take a little hammer and tap that down, and you can do that. And I've had a lot of people say, well, when you do that, you're banging the leather and you're hurting the leather and you're putting pound marks on it. But what I have found was something I started using lately are these little crimpers. And these little crimpers are pretty cool. You can get these, I think I got these at Temu as well. And so they have a little piece of leather that sticks in. And what you do is you just put it on top of your leather and you just kind of crimp down a little bit. And crimp down. Crimp down. You just go around your edge, crimping down, okay? And what that's doing is that's crimping that edge and mashing that down without hammering it down and putting grooves or hammer marks in it. So when I was learning, they would teach you to take a metal hammer and knock on these edges. And I have had times where it does. It'll put a hammer mark in there. And then it may or may not come out, and then that's going to show in your final product. So these are very nice to have, well worth the money. They don't cost a whole lot, maybe 20 bucks. I don't remember, but they're worth having. And then you can crimp. And when you do that, it will stick that down nice and tight. And the other thing is if you take your time like I did, you can see that we've got that edge almost perfect, where there's nothing sticking out. If you sandwich yours together and there's a bunch of stuff sticking out, then you're going to need to take your sanding block and you're going to need to sand it like so. So for this video, we're going to go ahead and give this a light sand, even though we got our piece pretty well lined up. You won't always get your piece lined up. As you become more proficient and better, yes, there's going to be times where you're going to try to put things together and you're trying to figure out, where did I goof up and why doesn't this line up right? Sometimes you're going to want to look at your pattern, and sometimes if the pattern looks good, then you're going to want to try to figure out, where in my process did I go wrong, so that you don't do it again. Any rate, now this one's done. I can go ahead and put my line in here, because this is where we're going to start our stitching. So we're going to be doing that. And then you put a little line at the bottom so that you know where to stop at. You'll know where to start this at. Okay. Same thing on this end. You can go ahead and put a little line there. And then you'll want to take this line and go all the way up, because this is what's going to, when we get it on our wallet, we're going to be stitching this down to the interior of this wallet. On this one, we're going to go ahead and do all the way to the top as well on this one. Now, you notice I haven't put a line across here, which I don't need to. I just stopped shy of about 4 millimeters that I eyeballed. Okay? Because when this gets onto our wallet and we give it a sand, once it's lined up, because we'll measure everything off the bottom, and then wherever this lines up, then we'll sand, and then once that edge is our edge, our perfect edge, then we'll go back in and we'll put our stitch line edge down. But for right now, this is going to be the stitch line, and so this is not going to be stitched down to the internal piece, and so we can go ahead and just stitch. We can take our these are our woosters. These are 4 millimeter pricking irons, and I always like to start right at the edge on the first tooth, and you're going to mark them by hand to start off with. And the reason we do it this way is because you don't want to get this tooth halfway or too close to this top, because when you put your stitching in there, you don't want it tearing. You don't want it tearing through this. So if you put your tooth just on the inside of this piece, which is going to go right there, which is going to go right there to the top, almost like it was made for it, right? And so when we do that, that's going to give us our stitch. It's going to go in here and go over the top, but it's not going to tear through this piece right here. And that's the same thing we're going to do on this. And so what we'll do is finish marking our, by hand, our edge. Now, as we get closer to this bottom edge, we're going to kind of want to see, there's our 4 millimeter mark. You can see if we mark it like this, that drops below that line, so we got to go back up one. And now you can see it's above that line, so that'll be okay to go ahead and mark that there. Okay. And then when we turn this to come this way with our stitching, we're going to want to hang this first tooth over the edge of our leather, and the rest of our teeth will be on this line. right? Like so. And then we can go ahead and mark that. Now, even though these two holes are close together, once we stitch that, you won't see it. So we'll put that aside because these pieces are done. So I'm going to go ahead, because we're at 45 minutes on the video, and so I don't want to get it too long. So I'm going to go ahead and line this up. So we'll want to line this edge up to this bottom piece, because that was our true edge. This edge was dropped down 2 millimeters so that we didn't, if we went over that line a little bit, you wouldn't see it, right? So our true edge is going to be about right there, right? Is where we drew that. We're going to pinch that down. We're going to make sure, take our finger and feel the edge. Make sure that these edges feel even. If they're not even, pull them off and put them back on. Hold this with your thumb. Take your other edge. Line up that line. Line up the exterior. Press it down. Make sure it feels even. Now, before we press this side down, we want to take this top piece and we just want to dry fit it. So, since we've lined these up where we drew those bottom lines, that should be where we originally held these together to dry fit. So we just want to check to make sure that our dry fit still works good. So we'll put these two pieces under here, press them down, and we'll want to kind of look at the edge to see how well those look. And as I look at those, it looks pretty good. So since this edge here comes to about the edge down here, then we can go ahead and press that down and then take this back off. Now, if this edge was way up here or way down here, or it was crooked or way off, then what we'd want to do is take it off and reapply it and adjust it accordingly. Okay? Once this piece is on, we want to turn it, because the only place this gets stitched before the wallet gets, before the external pocket piece gets put on, is this bottom piece gets stitched. So we'll draw our line. We'll want to go ahead and take our breaking iron. I'm going to mark it there, and mark it here. Okay? And then we're going to, on the next video, we're going to pick it up from here. And we're going to go ahead and punch these holes. We're going to punch these holes first and go ahead and get this stitched. Get this edge done. Okay? And then we're going to punch these holes and stitch this so this is held down, because once this gets put on, obviously we can't stitch that. So we stitch that, put this on. That's what holds this pocket. That's what keeps your cards from sliding down. Because if we put this on and we didn't stitch that, which you are going to make that mistake, when you put your cards in, they're going to slide down, and then you're not going to be able to see the tops of them. Okay? So by putting this stitch in here, when you put your cards in, your cards will stick up just a little above these card pocket. Makes a nice pocket. From there, we're going to do the same thing on this side. So we're going to skip that, and when we come back, I'll go ahead and have this side done and marked and ready to go so that we can pick up with the stitching. Okay? Thanks a lot. Make sure you like and subscribe, please. I need as many subscribers as I can get. I need 1,000 subscribers before I can go on YouTube and monetize. So that's even before I can apply. So I really need to get 1,000 subscribers. And so if you could do that for me, that would be great. That will allow me to bring more of this free content to you. And I can show you a whole lot more content on a lot more different types of wallets. I have tons of wallets to show you. And I'm going to show you on each and every one how to do them. We're going to do all kinds of build-alongs. I'm going to make some other ones for folks that are a little more advanced so that they don't have to speed up the videos like they may have to on this one. And basically I can just go through and, here's how you do this, that, and this and that. But my main video is for beginners, for those that's not been in the business and doesn't have anybody to tell them how to do things step by step by step. And that's what I'm trying to break down for you, is step by step. For beginners, it's never done this, that wants to make a business of this. And I'm going to show you how to do it. So for now, take care, and I'll see you here in a minute.